been asked to talk about. The impetus from this sort of came about from this IV ketamine ad. How many of you are familiar with this? IV ketamine, okay. So I was trying to figure out how to get my internet up and running again. I was just going to show you the video, but it doesn't seem to be working. But that's okay, because I have sort of the key points in this PowerPoint slide here, so I'll go through it here. Okay, so first of all, how many of you or your loved ones have a form of myositis other than inclusion body myositis? Okay, yeah, so, yeah, DM, okay, right, sure. Okay, yeah, so really what I'm going to be talking about applies to all forms of myositis, and my goal really is both with sort of conventional therapies as well as alternative therapies for you all to be able to evaluate the evidence for whether or not any typical therapy is number one, worth a trial. So is it worth considering? What is the actual evidence for it being effective? And number two, what are the risks and costs associated with the therapy? And then really it's a matter of evaluating the risks and benefits along with the advice of your physician, obviously, in terms of trying to decide whether any individual therapy is worthwhile. So most of my practice really focuses on inclusion body myositis. So I'll mostly use examples of treatments for IBM, but it's the concepts can be applied also to other forms. Okay, so right about a year ago now, so October of last year, I'm not sure if you can read this, but October 19th, 2016, there was this news article that was actually posted on TMA Facebook, on the TMA website, which says CBS News features Dr. Ashraf Anna, breakthrough treatment helps a wheelchair-bound patient with inclusion body myositis walk again. And of course, this, as you might expect, anyone who read this was immediately very interested. And so, if you click on this website here, what it shows you is a video, and the video is worth watching if you haven't seen it. Really more to sort of see what the features are of sort of non-reliable sources are, I would say, than anything else. I'm trying to avoid the use of words like charlatan and things like that. Trying to be politically correct in case I'm being like audio recorded. I don't want lawsuits or anything. But
is that word charlatan?
So right away, what you can see there. So they said CBS News, but then you look here. Okay, Great Day Tampa Bay. All right, that doesn't seem like CBS, but okay. So it seems like a real reporter, and here's the IBM patient. And then if you watch the video, they advertise their website. And what you see here, yeah, so this is in the video. It's ivketamine.com. And then if you go to that website, what you can see is there are these same videos, and they'll say CBS along with whatever Studio K is on the video, and they promote using IV ketamine for a ridiculous number of indications. So if you look here under conditions, you can see it's like, Lyme disease, multiple sclerosis, depression. So, right. So I would say this is sort of a classic example of snake oil salesman, quite honestly. So if you hear about a product that is advertised as being a cure, the first question is, okay, what is the actual motivation of whoever is promoting this? So you might not think IV ketamine, this physician who is an anesthesiologist and practices actually pain medicine. So you might think, okay, he's just trying to help people, and it's another company that is producing the drug. So what does he really have to actually gain by this? Well, so his clinic is actually getting a lot of money just from having the infusion center. Who knows if there are conflicts of interest between him and a company that's manufacturing the drug, et cetera. So now, that said, I would say the motivation for most of these alternative treatments usually is not so obviously financial. In most cases, physicians really do want to help their individual patients. And so the motivations in most cases of recommending therapy is really to try to help individual patients. So a few other signs on the website. If you just look at it briefly, you see, oh wow, look, research. So they're doing a whole lot of research, and they have this nice picture of a library here. But actually, if you look at everything they cite, it's either research studies that are real research studies for using IV ketamine in completely different indications, like chronic pain, for which it's approved, or they're actually just websites in which they have actually made claims on their website. So this practice of trying to sort of confuse what is like real, validated, peer-reviewed research versus just anecdotal claims is something that is unfortunately not unfrequently done in different clinics. So I would say this article is fake news. Okay, so what I'd like to talk to you guys about a little bit is what's frequently called evidence-based medicine, or EBM. And the concept here is that in IBM, and really in all forms of myositis, there are, in fact, no FDA-approved medicines. And so every therapy, every medication that is recommended really uses a combination of these three features. And so that is the individual clinician's expertise and experience, the external evidence, so what's published in the literature, either in myositis or in other diseases. So, perhaps in other autoimmune diseases or in other muscle diseases. And importantly also, what the individual patient's experiences are, their values, and it's and our role as a myositis physician is trying to combine these three things in recommending the best management for our patients. And so what I'll use sort of as an example here is what I call EBM or IBM. So that's evidence-based medicine. And there are, so what I have on the left here are what are sort of considered conventional, are considered conventional treatments, versus on the right, what are frequently referred to as alternative treatments. And so I'll go through examples of each of these, so the conventional ones and the alternative ones, and we'll talk very briefly about, okay, what is the evidence or rationale that any of these individual treatments are effective or useful in patients with myositis. So different treatments can be essentially broken down into 5 categories. So diet, medications, either prescribed or over the counter, different devices, different forms of therapy, and then actual medical procedures. Okay, so these are really the 5 major types of treatments. Okay, so let's first of all consider actual medications. So in all forms of myositis, there really are no good clinical trials to show that any one particular immunosuppressive medication is better than another in treating any form of myositis. Now, that said, in polymyositis or dermatomyositis, as you all know, they, in the vast majority of cases, respond to a large number of different immunosuppressive medications. Okay, and the reason we know that is not really double-blind, placebo-controlled trials, the sort of gold standard of evidence. It's really just clinical expertise. So over the years, people have used prednisone and methotrexate in treated patients, and most patients respond. There are lots of clinical reports showing these drugs are effective in dermatomyositis, polymyositis, but in terms of the gold standard placebo-controlled trials or comparative studies, they just don't exist in myositis.
So if our rheumatologist says, this is the gold standard that we use for treatment, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
No, so gold standard for myositis, the treatment is clinical expertise and clinical opinion.
Oh, but he was saying specifically a drug.
Okay, right. Right. If he's saying, for example, prednisone. Okay, so prednisone is often is considered sort of the gold standard initial treatment. I'm using the term gold standard loosely, but I would say most rheumatologists in dermatomyositis will start off with prednisone, and there's a number of reasons for that. But when I say gold standard, what I'm referring to, like in terms of evidence-based medicine, the absolute best evidence you can get is a placebo-controlled double-blind study. Okay, and we don't have that in any form of myositis, believe it or not. So, right. So, okay. So let's talk about other treatments. what about drugs designed to increase muscle mass? So testosterone as well as other steroids. There are investigational myostatin inhibitors and growth hormone. So there are a number of anecdotal reports, actually not been published, for growth hormone. Follistatin and oxandrolone have been published in IBM, but the evidence for really any of these drugs in myositis is minimal, I would say. And then I'll talk a little bit about the what I consider mainstream supplements. So for example, creatine and coenzyme Q10 and what the evidence is for them versus some of these alternative treatments. Yes?
So if you're talking about anecdotal evidence, how would the patients this anecdotal evidence came from get the drug in the first place? It's not a trial.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Let me back up. So when I'm talking about anecdotal evidence, I'm referring specifically to actually growth hormone. Is that what you're asking about?
We've been hearing another presentation on the follistatin.
Yes.
People that actually were in.
Right. So follistatin and bimagrumab would only be available in the context of a clinical trial.
All right.
Oxandrolone is available by prescription as well as testosterone, and there are lots of supplements that have anabolic steroids in them.
Is it human growth hormone?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't know what just happened. Okay, so growth hormone is an interesting one. I've actually seen things on the internet. People have claimed there are patents and evidence for growth hormone working in building muscle, in particular in IBM. Now there are no studies on that, and it's really not FDA approved for muscle disease. And so really the only way someone could write a prescription for that in IBM is basically to diagnose someone with growth hormone deficiency, and then try that drug and see if it's beneficial. Insurance companies in general will not support, or will not cover investigational therapies. Now, what I want to show you here is one of the few good placebo-controlled trials that has been done in myositis, and show you what a good clinical trial should look like in terms of showing efficacy. And so this one was published in 1993 in New England Journal of Medicine, which is really one of the premier medical journals. And in terms of number of patients, it was relatively small. So 15 patients with biopsy-proven refractory BN. These patients received prednisone and then were randomly assigned to either IVIG versus placebo for 3 months, and then they had an option of switching over, not knowing which arm they were on. And what you can see here are the results. Hopefully that projects okay. So on the left here is our patients who started off on IVIG, and then you can see from baseline to 3 months, and then what happened when they crossed over to the actual placebo group. versus those who were on placebo and then crossed over to the IVIG group. So hopefully it's clear even in the back of the room that if you look at your muscle strength and function, that when you're given IVIG, it improves, and then when you switch back over to placebo, it goes down. And the reverse is true when you start off with placebo and go to IVIG. Okay, so in terms of evidence for a drug working in myositis, this is really, really, the gold standard, the best that we have in myositis. Okay, what about creatine? There's not a lot of data, but there's some reports in myositis, in particular PMDM, that, if you look at this paper, for example, they started off using 20 grams per day for 8 days and then 3 grams per day, and then looked at a number of different measures, including how far or how long it takes to walk 50 feet, walking up and down stairs, and getting up to go test. And it's pretty clear in the study that in PM and DM, actually muscle strength improved. Now, we don't have that evidence in IBM. As far as I know, no one's done a clinical study like this. But it's actually been done. It's been studied in a lot of different muscle diseases. In fact, if you look at this, what's called Cochrane review articles. So Cochrane database is one of the most rigorous resources for actually studying clinical trial results. And the Cochrane reviews will analyze all the published literature and really only consider those that are considered high quality studies, and then come up with their actual conclusions at the end of the study. This thing really doesn't like me. If you see here, so I tried to blow this up so it's big enough to read. All of this will be available on the web eventually, by the way. So, of those conclusions, high quality evidence from randomized controlled trials shows that short and medium term creatine treatment increases muscle strength in muscular dystrophies. There's also evidence that improves functional performance in muscular dystrophy and idiopathic inflammatory myopathy. Creatine is well tolerated. So that's basically the bottom line. So at least in the case of this one supplement, and at least in the case of dermatomyositis and polymyositis, there actually is pretty good evidence that it improves muscle function. So what about some of the other supplements you can find online?
Dr. Wood?
Yes.
Before you move on, for those of us who were in the session on exercise with Dr. I'm going to butcher her name.
Yeah.
Alexander.
Alexanderson.
Yeah, she seems to be a proponent of taking off a 1 month out of every 4 from creatine.
Oh,
so in
okay.
other words, 3 months on, 1 month off, 3 months on, 1 month off.
Oh, interesting.
Are you at all familiar?
I'm not familiar with that. I'll have to talk to her about
It
that.
has something to do with kidneys.
Okay.
With stress on the kidneys. So
Okay.
just, yeah.
Okay.
It was very interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll definitely have to talk to her about that. I mean, it probably matters on the actual dose that you take.
She also used a loading dose. And
Right.
then goes to, I thought it was 3 grams a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So most bodybuilders even use more than 20 grams. They probably they use like 100 grams every day for forever. As far as I know, I'm not aware of any evidence that that creates and might be harmful to the kidneys. But I'll definitely talk to her about that.
For whatever reason, I think she follows the dosing that was used in the study that,
Mhm.
that,
Okay.
that she was referring to.
Yeah. Okay, so what about other supplements? Has anyone heard of MyoX? This is just one example. So if you get on the internet, you can find all sorts of supplements that bodybuilders take, and some people will have testimonials. In fact, this was kind of funny. There's a tweet from Justin Bieber in January 2015. MyoX supplement helped me with my workouts. And apparently right after that, the market for MyoX took off. And I've had lots of patients ask me about this. So it sounds really good, right? Clinically tested natural myostatin inhibitor. Okay, we know there's myostatin inhibitors in clinical trials. This is natural. And look at this guy. I mean, he started off pale, and now he's really tan. So in only 12 weeks, it transformed him. Now, it turns out I've actually done a little bit of an investigation here. So what exactly is MyoX? So actually what it is, it's egg yolk extract, and they claim that there are natural myostatin inhibitors in the egg yolk. So things like follistatin. So you're like, oh wow, so there's actually follistatin in egg yolk, and it's a natural substance, I can just take it. So the problem with that is, of course, follistatin is a small protein. They're peptides, and if you swallow it, it'll be immediately broken down in the GI system. So in terms of possibility of this actually being a myostatin inhibitor, it's essentially impossible.
Didn't the first Rocky movie prove, beyond a doubt, that eating raw eggs for breakfast,
Right.
you can go and become the heavyweight champion of the world? Like,
Yeah.
that's a controlled double-blind.
Right. So often patients ask about different diets and protein supplements, right? So it makes sense to me that eating a high protein diet, which we know in healthy people helps improve muscle mass. It makes a lot of sense that would be beneficial. We don't have evidence, but I mean, my advice in all these things is anything that is otherwise healthy. In particular, if you have it evaluated by a licensed nutritionist. So in IBM, there's often problems swallowing, and so making sure that you're getting a healthy number of calories, an adequate amount of protein, all of that, it makes a lot of common sense. So whether or not any particular supplements and the exact amount of protein in your diet is unclear. So how many of you have ever tried or experimented with herbal medicines like Chinese supplements? A number of my patients, actually this is from an email one of my patients sent. So he swears by this cocktail of Chinese supplements. I'm not aware. Is anyone aware of any good websites to get information on Chinese herbal supplements? I spent a lot of time trying to find some sort of scientific resource on these Chinese natural supplements. Wasn't able to really find anything for these in particular. However, there is a website that I think is pretty good. It's called Supplement Police. So if you Google supplement, and as far as I can tell, it's run by a team of reputable physicians, and they evaluate the claims of lots of different over-the-counter supplements. For example, MyoX, and you can read their evaluation there. It's not very glowing. So I would say websites like this that really try to take a medical and scientific approach to evaluating claims of benefit of different supplements for different diseases and symptoms is definitely worth evaluating. Okay, what about different devices? So the what I would consider conventional treatments for leg weakness are things like walking aids, so cane, walker, etc., as well as ankle foot orthoses. And we have new things that are being developed, so exoskeletons, electrical stimulation. Augie's here, he can tell you about his experiment with that. As far as I know, no one has really done any type of clinical study on different types of orthoses in IBM. And actually, we have a grant into the TMA in which we propose to actually compare these carbon fiber, what are called ground reaction ankle foot orthoses, which we started studying in IBM, versus the more sort of standard AFOs or no AFO at all. And basically the way these work, so in any patient with foot drop from any cause, having an AFO really helps to hold up the foot and keep the toes from dragging. And the idea is it'll help reduce falls, normalize gait, reduce fatigue with walking. And in neuropathy and other diseases, there are studies showing AFOs are safe and beneficial, and certainly our clinical experience is that in IBM patients who have foot drop, it's often beneficial. Now, as many of you know, oftentimes a bigger problem than actually foot drop in IBM is weakness of the quadriceps muscles or thigh muscles. And so one advantage of these ground reaction AFOs is that because of the mechanics, the way the physics works here, when you step, the floor actually exerts a force against the anterior shin here and helps to extend the knee. And so the idea or our hypothesis is that that using this type of AFO versus this versus no AFO will help improve gait function and reduce falls. So there are a number of other devices that have been studied. So there's what's called a stance control orthosis. There's a study published out of Mayo, which shows that out of I think like 6 patients that they looked at, actually 2 showed some improvement in gait, and then the other 3 did not. And even the ones that had improved gait actually stopped using it because it was so cumbersome and so difficult to put on. So another type of orthosis is a little bit simpler. So it's basically just a combination of a knee orthosis along with a ground reaction AFO. So that's another type of orthotic device that we're looking at. Now, what I'd be interested in is a study where we compare these types of things with some of the newer things. Has anyone tried out or seen this device?
I got to use it today.
You got to use it today? What did you think?
Well, there's definitely helped. Definitely a learning curve with using it.
Yeah.
And but I think it can be a life changer for a lot of IBM patients.
Right. Yeah. So a number of these newer devices, I think, are really interesting. As is the functional electrical stimulation. Now, in terms of getting insurance companies to help cover some of these things, what I think we'll need are actual clinical studies to show a benefit. And so, because of the known placebo effect, so there are many studies showing that regardless of what it is, so placebo, sugar pill, sham injections, if someone thinks that it will help in terms of muscle function, walking, etc. So multiple studies have shown that, and it really goes to power of positive thinking.
Tom, let me ask you a question
Yes.
about that, because in a situation like this company that makes the exoskeleton, can they, because they're the manufacturer of it, can they initiate their own case studies on this that would lead to a clinical study, or does it have to be an independent researcher that looks into it?
So they can definitely fund a study, but I would think in order for it to have rigorous evaluation and be published in a peer-reviewed journal and eventually FDA approved, it would need to be evaluated in an academic center.
And so by funding, they could provide the exoskeletons for...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. That's right, yeah. Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm going to sort of skip through some of this. Again, I'll have all this available online eventually. So what about exercise, right? So all of you now have probably heard there's a number of studies and lectures showing the benefits of exercise. Well, is there really good data? What's the evidence that exercise is beneficial? So, in fact, Helene Alexanderson, one of the members of the board, published this study, which really shows quite convincingly, I would say, in dermatomyositis and polymyositis that it is that regular exercise is in fact beneficial in terms of improving muscle function. There's not a whole lot of data in IBM. There is this one study which describes an exercise program that we recommend, showing improvement in aerobic capacity as well as in muscle strength of a number of different muscle groups. So, what we'd like to see in evaluating any results of any study are actual people doing actual statistics and p-values showing a significant effect. So here, if you look at pre-training versus post-training, and you look at these muscle groups, for example, so hip flexion, hip abduction, and knee flexion all significantly improved after training in these groups. And we've done, or we have studies ongoing right now at Johns Hopkins, which also show a similar, at least at least short-term improvement in muscle strength in IBM. Now, what the long-term effects are of and how rigorous and how much exercise should be done is still unknown. Did you have a question?
So do you feel comfortable with IBM patients upping their game on exercise? Because for years we've been told, and now we're told yes. So how do you feel about it?
Yes. So really, this is the best study showing an improvement in terms of muscle function in IBM. But a lot of studies and our sort of clinical experience in treating IBM has shown that individuals who exercise more, that exercise is safe. Now, there's always a risk, of course, of falling, depending on the type of injury, depending on the type of exercise. So as long as the exercise that's done is safe, then all of the evidence really to date suggests that exercise is beneficial. And I'm not aware really of any study showing that exercise is harmful in terms of increasing muscle breakdown or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. What about things like massage, acupuncture? Anyone tried this here? Yeah. So a lot of my patients actually have tried massage and acupuncture and IBM, and a lot of them say it really helps. And so even though, really if you try to evaluate the scientific evidence, you're gonna have a hard time really finding what's considered, good scientific evidence that is helpful. But really part of the problem here is that it's essentially impossible to conduct a placebo-controlled trial with acupuncture, with massage, with functional stimulation, right? Because anything where the individuals can actually feel what's being done to them, right? There's no way you can have a study where you have an intervention and then you have a sham intervention, right? So a sham acupuncture, they're going to know they're not really getting their cells stuck or in the right places. So my advice with these types of therapies, they've been around forever, right? They're ancient. We think that there's minimal risk. And you know what? Even if it is placebo effect, the placebo effect is real. There are so many studies, actually placebo effect is such an interesting area of investigation. Like, it's amazing what the power of placebo can do in the brain if one really believes that what one is doing is helping. So my feeling is, for things that are inexpensive, minimal or no risk, if you want to try it and you try it and it works for you, I say go for it, right? All right, now, when it comes to actual procedures though, the cost, in terms of financial cost, goes up, as inevitably does the risk. And so any type of procedure, you really want to carefully weigh the risks versus potential benefits. So just as an example here, I've listed some conventional treatments in IBM, as well as alternative treatments. And I'll talk a little bit about stem cell injection. So those of you with IBM know that sort of the standard of care for swallowing problems initially is being evaluated and diagnosed by a speech-language therapist, and they may recommend exercises. And then if it's more severe, usually they'll recommend a esophageal dilation. So I'll show you what that is. So that is endoscopy, going down with a tube and then basically having a balloon on the end of a tube go through that, and then blowing up the balloon to expand the upper esophageal sphincter here, and the result is that it's white. Okay, so no one has ever done a study in IBM for how effective is esophageal dilation. I can tell you, as many physicians will tell you, I'm sure many of you can tell me as well, upper esophageal dilation works in improving dysphagia in IBM. Now, could part of that be placebo effect? Who knows? Who cares, right? If it works, it works. So I've never seen a patient have any complications from this. So it's, yes?
How long does this effect persist?
It's extremely variable. It can be months, it can be years. I've had patients have this actually done multiple times, like even 5 or 6 times.
And insurance companies pay.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so it's a accepted conventional treatment. Now here's what I would call an experimental treatment that we've been doing at Johns Hopkins. So in terms of finger flexor weakness in IBM, given the fact that the extensor muscles are strong, might we be able to simply move an extensor tendon over to a flexor muscle and improve finger flexion strength? So we've tried that on a number of patients. Again, there's no way to really do a double-blind or a single-blind placebo-controlled trial, but we've done it in a number of patients, and what I'll tell you is that in some patients, at least temporarily, they do have an improvement in ability to use the hand. And we've been testing things like using pitcher function, zippers, buttons, spoons. Now, in terms of weighing the risks and benefits, I'm not convinced, at least, that it's really worth risks of surgery, being having your arm immobilized for 6 weeks. We haven't yet really fully analyzed all the data, but even when we do, I don't think we're going to get a definitive answer. So in terms of using evidence-based medicine, again, this is a matter where your individual beliefs and needs really come into place, right? So if having strong pincher function in the fingers is really important to your quality of life, and you're willing to undergo the risk of surgery, maybe it's worth a try.
Dr. Lloyd?
Yes.
What's been the success of the benefit side? I hear you about the risk side. I'm
Yes.
trying to understand how successful has it been on the benefit side? How often do people not see this type of thing?
Yes. Excellent question. To be honest, the hand surgeon who has done these, he's done about 8 or 9. We've tried to work with them to actually be able to evaluate the patients, post-op at different times with sort of an independent, hand therapist and all that. We don't have good data.
A little resistance there, huh?
Yeah, right. We don't have good data. I haven't heard of any patients that have had really bad outcomes. The patients that I have seen in follow-up, so there's about of the 9, I think I've seen 4 of them following the surgery, and all of those have at least said that they had improved hand function following. Now, I know at least one, the improvement in hand function was short-lived, much shorter than they would have liked, so it lasted a month or two.
That's a lot for a month, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so I'm hoping to be able to get, more data to be able to give you better answers as to, how well this works.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, now what about something like stem cells? So all of you have heard, I'm sure, about stem cells and about how it's going to be the new cure. This is a really good website. Has anyone used this or been on here before? ScienceBasedMedicine.org. Again, it's a number of physicians and scientists who basically what they try to do is evaluate things like stem cell therapy, and then report the results in a way that is easy for lay people to understand. And so recently they actually did a nice article on stem cell tourism, and I won't read this, but you can take a look at it if you want to go to the website. Basically, the bottom line is there's an example here of a patient that had a stroke who was extremely wealthy, and so he wanted to do whatever he could to try to improve his weak right arm. And so he found a place in China that was injecting stem cells into the spinal cord, and so ended up paying $300,000. And his belief was, well, okay, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I have plenty of money. I'm willing to try it. So actually, his case was published recently in New England Journal of Medicine, again, the premier medical journal, as an example of, there are real risks to having these stem cell injections. So it turned out he developed a tumor in his spinal cord. Now he's quadriplegic. And when they went in and resected the tumor, it turned out it wasn't even his own stem cells, which is what it was supposed to be. It was somebody else. So it was some contaminant, some other patient cells that were injected. So in terms of stem cells, there are real risks. And so here's sort of their bottom line, which is kind of what I agree with. As noted by numerous scholars, only a few stem cell therapies are currently supported by good scientific data. However, unproven stem cell therapies are being marketed throughout the world. The clinics that offer these services often operate outside of ethical or regulatory oversight and exploit individuals at the most vulnerable by offering unproven treatments for incurable and debilitating diseases. So unfortunately, that's kind of where we are in terms of stem cells. This was interesting from the article. This was, I think, the daughter of that patient that I was telling you about, Mr. Gass. She raged against the clinics, telling them you ought to be ashamed for charging $40,000 a shot. You praying people like my brother-in-law, who's desperate. And then she says, I said, if what you're saying is true, you should get the Nobel Prize. If not, you ought to go to hell. Shame on me. And so it turns out you don't actually have to go to China to get these therapies. So forget stem cell tourism. Stem cell clinics in the U.S. are plentiful, and I've been amazed at how many of them there are. I have patients all the time, ask me about these different clinics. And in fact, so it really amazes me that legally these clinics are able to get away with it in the U.S. Like this one is in Phoenix, so Phoenix Stem Cell, and they say here inclusion body myositis, and look, they even have just like what we saw in the website with ivketamine.com, research programs. Okay, so if they're saying research programs, they must be scientifically sound and they're really, doing research. One red flag that I saw, this was posted in 2013, and I just got on the website yesterday, there's 0 comments. Wow, when have you ever seen that? So obviously they're not interested in anyone's comments. I'm sorry, you have a question?
Yeah, it's not a question, it's a comment. The FDA is cracking down on this right now, as we speak. I don't know if you've got another slide to talk about this, but they just put out a press release on the 28th of August, basically saying that they're gonna start looking much more closely at some stem cell clinics.
Excellent, yeah. Yeah, and so if you click on the research programs there, look at this, look at all the research programs. So like any disease you can imagine that doesn't have a good treatment, they're using stem cells for. And these are clinics in the US. So it's really amazing that, yeah, so we'll see what the FDA ends up doing, but.
The malpractice carriers still insure these people.
I don't know, I have no idea. I guess so.
So,
I mean, so most of these therapies are probably safe. So if you were to, it's unlikely if you were to go to a clinic in the US and have this done that you would end up with a tumor, like the guy in China. Now that said, there's absolutely no evidence that it's going to be beneficial. So what they do is usually take fat from one part of your body and magically purify the stem cells, and then they inject them somewhere, and somehow these stem cells are supposed to find the source of injury and inflammation and go in there and repair it. There's no evidence of that.
Is there any connection to what they do with the taking blood from you, put it in a centrifuge, and then injecting it back in?
Yes.
Places?
Yeah, right. It's similar to that.
And Tom, if I could just interject, before you came on the medical advisory board, several years back, we had an issue at one of our conferences where there was a number of myositis patients who were both in southern Arizona and also in South Florida, who were paying $9,000 a pop to go to these boutique stem cell clinics for a procedure. And there was a big uproar wanting to know why the association was not endorsing this or making people aware of it. And as it turns out, none of those people got any benefit at all
Right.
from that procedure.
Right. Well, and the problem is many times with these types of therapies, actually patients do have a benefit, and so it turns out that oftentimes additional treatments are given. Number one, so they'll have lymphoporesis, which means removing one's own white cells. They'll be on steroids, so combination of the other treatments that are given, along with what is really a real phenomenon of a placebo effect, like wanting to believe that this is helping. So maybe you're exercising more. You have more sort of you have a higher level of physical activity. I would believe that IBM patients having these therapies, had improvement, at least temporary, at least subjective. Okay, so in the last 5 minutes or so, I don't know, do you guys have, I think my time's about up. Do you guys have somewhere else you have to go? Okay, so maybe I'll spend just another 5 or 10 minutes. What I would like to actually suggest that, in fact, one thing that I would like to do as a member of the Medical Advisory Board is really try to evaluate in a scientific and medical way, along with my colleagues on the board, all of these different alternative or off-label therapies. So really ask, okay, what is the evidence that it might be beneficial? and how trustworthy is that evidence? And the reason why I think that's valuable, there's a very similar group and study known as ALS Untangled. So ALS, as I'm sure most of you know, is an incredibly devastating disease, and most patients are willing to try anything. And so a group, let's get that, a group called ALS Untangled has, over the last almost 10 years now, been really rigorously evaluating the scientific evidence for these alternative or off-label therapies in ALS. And they've actually published, at least when this was published 3 years ago, 26 reviews where they really rigorously evaluate different treatments. And so they will, in addition to sort of contacting the proponent of the alternative therapy, they'll evaluate any type of research that's been done. For example, using PubMed and Google, as well as other databases and blogs, Patients Like Me. And what they do is they essentially score each therapy in A through F, and say whether, in terms of mechanistic plausibility, preclinical studies, trials, how much evidence is there? So a placebo-controlled double-blind clinical study without any flaws, for example, would get an A. Okay. So in ALS, how well are these things done? So if you look here, look at this. These are all these different alternative off-label therapies. So everything from coconut oil, cannabis, fecal transplantation. So all these things that were recommended as a cure for ALS, they've actually evaluated on all these different parameters. So mechanism, what's known in preclinical model systems, what about published case reports, trials, and then risks, right? So what it boils down to is really evaluating the evidence for benefit versus risk. And so, as you can see here, in most cases, it's unknown in terms of whether these things worked, or in many cases, they're even given an F, as in it's been shown that it doesn't work. And very few actual A's or B's in terms of trials showing efficacy. So I think, I would propose what we ought to have is IBM Untangled, where we actually evaluate not only these alternative off-label drugs, but also the ones that are commonly prescribed or recommended, right? And actually look, what is the evidence? So I tried just sort of on my own to sort of put some of these things that we recommend as myositis physicians and evaluate the evidence. So I would put ketamine and MyoX here as an F. I would put exercise here as an A in terms of efficacy, and maybe A- B+ in terms of risks. And then in terms of creatine and some of these other supplements and things, I graded them sort of based on this ALS Untangled. So I think having a resource like this would be helpful, so that individuals could then decide, okay, what is the evidence? What are the risks? Am I willing to try it, or am I not interested? In terms of myositis, I can tell you many patients are extremely worried about statins, right? And probably most of you don't take statins. So it turns out there have been studies of statins in myositis, including IBM, and reproducibly they've been shown to be safe in myositis. But more importantly, if you really look at the clinical evidence, so placebo-controlled studies for patients that have had previous heart attack, stroke, or have risk factors for heart attack and stroke, if their physicians recommend a statin to improve their or to lower the risk of heart attack, stroke, or death. Actually, there are so many studies you would believe of statins, and almost all of them positive. So statins get an A in all of these, and of course there is a risk in terms of having muscle problems. So again, one has to really weigh risk versus benefits, and it's different for everyone. So okay, so the last slide. So actually tomorrow, I believe Chris Weil is talking about clinical trials, but I just wanted to mention clinicaltrials.gov. Like if you want to know about a drug that's been in a clinical trial and whether it worked and what the evidence is, this is an excellent website. So what I showed here is what happens if you just put in inclusion body myositis. You get this list of studies. The only one that is recruiting is arimoclomol, and it talks about the study, primary, secondary outcome measures, eligibility, inclusion, exclusion criteria. So it's a good resource for all clinical trials for all forms of myositis.
Do you have any hope on that drug?
I do.
Good.
Yeah, we're going to be a site. And then my last couple slides. Okay, so again, this will all be online, but these are what I would consider reputable websites for getting information on different therapies in myositis in particular. Myositis.org, of course, the TMA. A brand new website. I don't know if you all have met actually Kevin Dooley. He's an ophthalmologist, a great guy, really smart guy, who actually just made this website. And so his goal is in IBM to really help educate individuals with IBM in terms of knowing, okay, what are the best treatments, clinical trials, how to diagnose it. So I think his website will be a great resource for patients. MDA is another great one. And then for your doctors, or if for those of you with any medical background, I recommend UpToDate as well as PubMed. And I'd be cautious with obviously things like Facebook and Google.
Is there a charge for those?
What's that?
Is there a charge for those websites? The doctor website?
So PubMed there is not. UpToDate there is. Yeah.
Even with PubMed, sometimes you can get an abstract.
Yes,
free,
right.
But you gotta buy.
Exactly. Yeah, here's one that I wrote on in UpToDate on management of inclusion body myositis, and so we're every few months we'll update it with additional recommendations. So the advantage of a site like this is that it isn't only my opinion. It's actually been reviewed and peer reviewed by multiple other experts to make sure that what I'm recommending is reasonable.
These are actual research papers that are there?
Yes, right. So it has so for every paragraph or every therapy that's discussed, there are references of all the research that's been done. So that's a good resource, I think. Okay, so sorry for going way over, but here's my last two slides. So summary. So evidence-based medicine in myositis, even though there's a lack of good clinical trials, there is certainly good evidence that immunosuppressive therapy works, with the exception of inclusion body myositis. And I would say the biggest problem in IBM really is the lack of good clinical trials. And the main obstacles to that are, number one, we really don't understand what causes IBM, so the pathogenesis is really poorly understood. And because of that, drug companies are not very interested in investing in their drug when drug targets in IBM are not known, right? And there's really a lack of good animal models where they can relatively cheaply test their drug to see if it might work. And then, of course, trials are extremely expensive, and so oftentimes people think that drug companies aren't interested in funding a clinical trial in a rare disease like IBM. Actually, that's not true. That's not the problem. They're investing a lot of money in rare diseases. The drug companies will fund both clinical trials and research if they know what the target is, and if there is a potential for actually patenting a compound or agent that will then act on that drug target. And so my own opinion in terms of where research needs to go to get more clinical trials in IBM is really to have obviously a better understanding of the pathogenesis or what causes disease, but also better models, animal models to be able to test drugs, as well as what we call surrogate biomarkers. So ways that we can actually see if patients are getting better without having to monitor them for 2 or 3 years and look at their muscle strength. So what we call biomarkers, of measuring things in the blood, for example, to see if there are signs that the disease is getting better early. And then, as I mentioned, so for these alternative off-label treatments, what are referred to as AOTs, I think it's very reasonable to consider if the mechanism is plausible, so a plausible mechanism, evidence of efficacy in some muscle disease or some relevant disease, and if the risk is low and the cost is low. So for that reason, I recommend certainly exercise. I recommend creatine. I recommend actually statins in patients with risk factors, and there's actually good evidence for rosuvastatin or Crestor is the least myotoxic of the statins, and so I think if it were my mom or dad and they had myositis and they also had risk of heart attack and stroke, I would absolutely say, okay, you ought to take a statin, you ought to take Crestor. Yes, sir.
I hear what you said about coenzyme Q10. I know with people who are taking statins for heart conditions, many physicians recommend that.
Exactly.
What's that all about? Can you give a minute on that?
Sure. Yeah, so basically coenzyme Q10 helps to improve the side effects of statins. Okay, so what happens with statins is they reduce your LDL cholesterol, but they also reduce a number of other lipids that are thought to be helpful. And so it's thought that coenzyme Q10 can sort of help to reduce the side effects. Now, coenzyme Q10, it's a antioxidant. It also helps the mitochondria. So, at least in terms of research studies, when you look at muscle degeneration, in IBM, we know there are mitochondrial abnormalities in IBM muscle, and we know coenzyme Q10 is helpful to mitochondria, so it is worth considering taking it. Now, we have no idea what dose. 100 milligrams per day is what is recommended in patients with mitochondrial disease. So the reason why I don't generally recommend it is not because the rationale for trying it isn't there, and not because there's any significant risk. It's really just the fact that it can be pricey, and really we have no evidence that it works. There's no evidence. So it's one of those things that so coenzyme Q10, as well as a whole list of other antioxidants and things that are often recommended. They are supplements that I think, if you don't mind paying for them, I don't think it's unreasonable to actually take them.
Is it the evidence more anecdotal?
Well, so there is evidence for things like coenzyme Q10 and antioxidants in animal models. There is evidence in other diseases. There's not evidence in myositis, and so it's a matter of trying to put plausibility, evidence in other diseases and models, together with the risk. In this case, really is just how much it costs. And the reality is, if it helps, it probably doesn't help a lot, because a lot of patients have tried all of these different antioxidants, and I'm not aware of anyone ever saying coenzyme Q10 or any other supplement has an obvious improvement. Whereas creatine, actually in many cases, because of its mechanism of action, there are patients who will actually notice, hey, if I take my creatine in the morning and I work out, I have more energy.
Are you talking about IBM as well?
Yes.
So we heard earlier about diet.
Yes.
Right? So antioxidants and omega-3. What is your opinion for IBM? I think that was for tendon myositis, they said diet would be important.
Yeah. Honestly, my education in terms of different types of diets and what the best nutrition is for individual patients is not up to par. So we have a actual nutritionist who's board certified in nutrition. So I would recommend for all IBM patients, anyone with any degree of muscle atrophy or weakness, why not just see a certified nutritionist who who knows about muscle, who knows about vitamins and nutrients, and actually come up with a plan in terms. So not only general recommendations, but they can actually help you come up with a diet and a shopping list. So so I recommend it for sure.
You have a list of supplements at all that maybe Johns Hopkins recommends?
This is it right here.
Is there a brand of the creatine that you?
No.
No, okay.
No, it's also called creatine monohydrate. So some nutrition stores will sell it along with a lot of other things, and it's a lot more expensive. So I recommend just the pure creatine monohydrate. Often comes as a powder, and you can mix it up in your drink.
CoQ10 liquid or tablet or pill? Is there a preference?
No. No preference.
Creatine is also very cheap.
Yeah.
You can buy a kilo of it, and it's pennies a day. And with a little half teaspoon measure, which gets you about 2.5 grams. I mix it in orange juice every day and take it down.
This is the
And it may be the placebo effect with me, but I think I can tell a difference. It's not night and day difference, it's just a little bit of a difference. Thank you.
all right. Thank you very much.
Don't forget your evaluation.